testing my patience. Um, so introduction.
Introduction to rhythm and blessings. Well, I guess first we have to define everything that we believe in. So, what do you feel like the definition of rhythm is?
Uh, Rhythm is a continuous pace of vibration, you know, and the blessings piece is the the gifts we've been given by God to spread love on this earth and grow in our personal journey. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that definition.
All right.
Now, when I think of rhythm, I think of rhythm as a very long historic experience that human beings have been able to be a part of on Earth. I have a lot of I use rhythm as a tool. I use rhythm as a tool for myself to feel more centered in this world. I've gotten to this point where I kind of find rhythm in everything. Sometimes I'll just sit by a pool and watch like the tiniest little ripple go through the water
All right.
because it brings me back to rhythm. And just like you're saying, I think when you tune into the communication that comes with the rhythm that's here in this world, it makes it easy to feel your blessings flowing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because rhythm comes with being in tune with yourself and the world around you. And that is essential to find peace and what we would recognize as happiness. So good. I agree with you. And I thank God for the opportunity to have another conversation like this and document our journey.
I thank God for that opportunity as well. So let me ask you, why do you feel like the entire world, the possible viewership that's out there, should listen to what you have to say about rhythm?
Um, you and I, young black men with college degrees that have grown up in Arizona in a area where there's a lot of people different from us and different from each other in an interesting environment. Arizona is pretty unique, I would say, the Phoenix area. And we've left this area and found our way back after college and continue to build upon our friendship that we've had for
Mm,
15 years,
15 years.
I would say. And um, we've both grown in similar ways, I think, uh, along these years, even with a chunk in between where we were in different places doing our own thing for a while. So we've both developed our perspectives and interacted with a lot of different people in different industries with different expertises, and we've both learned a lot in different realms as well outside of what we were doing early in our friendship. So
Mm.
it's been beneficial for both of us to be able to share experiences and have these type of conversations and continue to develop our consciousness and our intelligence.
Mm.
Yeah.
True. And that's what it's all about. I feel the same way. I kind of take the approach of knowing what it's like to be out of rhythm, knowing what it's like to not feel synced in to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I faced a lot of adversity in my time in trying to figure out how to get back into feeling like my life has some type of rhythm and I can acknowledge and recognize my blessings. And going through that, I feel like it gives me the optimism and the energy to want to sit with people and talk about how they manifest that in their lives and how they have possibly had to go through adversity to maintain it.
Right. Yes, definitely. Um, How do you feel that development has benefited you in what you're doing right now?
Mm. I think it's benefited me in what I'm doing right now because early on, I feel like I would always prepare for a moment when I had to perform, and the thoughts of what spectators would think would get to me.
Mm-hmm.
I would often wonder about if somebody's going to think I'm whack if
Mm-hmm.
I don't make the right move.
Mm-hmm.
And through going through years and years of having to perform and having to mentally prepare, what I learned is that there is a place that I can tap into that as long as I stay in the moment, I will do my best from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes a mind game from that point on
Right.
because I've always been good at putting in the repetition and practice.
Uh-huh.
What I had to do was teach myself to trust my practice and repetition.
Oh yeah, of
That
course.
was my obstacle.
Yeah, as with anything that you want to be proficient in. So explain to our audience what it is that you do, the where you put that into practice.
Yeah. So, one thing I do is my official title is a lead behavior technician,
Mm-hmm.
which means that I work with staff that is in classrooms that help teachers work day to day with students that have emotional disabilities and learning disabilities. So these are students that will get very upset easily, become physically aggressive, become a danger to the environment that they're in and themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they usually have staff that work with them that are trained to problem solve or understand emotions and figure out de escalation and coping strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So they work day to day in the classroom. I work outside of the classroom and come up with plans with them and their teachers and their parents and their school psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much what my day to day looks like is that I'm having meetings with these different people to develop these plans, and I'm helping their staff that's in the classroom run the plan
Right.
pretty much. Also, as a hobby and a side job, I'm a basketball official.
Mm-hmm.
So I've used my work, my toil to continue trying to stay in the moment and develop myself and read these coincidences and daily blessings and follow it like a route to my
Right.
self actualization.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that you get to use the same skills in two different areas in two very different ways and continue to develop upon them in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's beneficial. Similar to what I do. Um, Registered nurse. I work in a multidisciplinary ICU. We specialize in transplants and neurological disorders. So, um, brain surgeries essentially. And we don't do any traumas at my hospital, but we do a lot of post surgical care and multi organ failure, kidney failure, liver failure, heart failure, and do transplants and stabilization of critical care patients. So I usually work in a either 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 nurse to patient ratio setting. And, for example, I a few days ago had to manage 9 IV pumps, 2 ventricular drains coming out of someone's brain, a ventilator that was supplying them oxygen and helping their lungs function, and also having to control the systems of their body essentially. So my brain is very critical in my thinking, I believe, and my assessment skills of situations and people, I would say, are a lot higher than the average person. And I've used that knowledge and development from nursing to translate into what I do as my hobby or second job is personal training and mentorship. And it is beneficial definitely to be able to develop upon skills that you have in different areas and be able to change the perspective of what you're doing and really maximize upon those things. And it's a it's a little breakaway release for me to do my hobby, pastime, job, because nursing is pretty intense. I work in an intensive care unit, so it's intense. It's emotionally and physically taxing. So it's good for me to be able to mix it up and also have that skill set be in an area that's not so serious.
Mm.
Yeah. So for today, I think that in regards to what we both do and what we both prioritize, we can discuss education a
Mm.
bit. Um, Particularly different types of education,
Yeah.
levels of education.
Okay.
We can pick points in our educational journey that we think are significant,
Mm.
and then afterwards talk about different types of intelligence.
Okay. That's a great idea. So where are we gonna start with that?
Um, let's start with the definition of education, shall we? Education is the process of facilitating learning
Mm.
or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits. So, education happens in many different ways. It can happen in passive forms, intentional forms, standardized, structured form. There's formal education, right? Informal education. Um, Educational methods include storytelling, discussion, teaching, training, and directed research.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that you and I often have to do in our professions. We basically tell stories of some of our anecdotal experiences in our jobs to um, help plan on how we're going to accomplish similar situations or goals in the future.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of discussion with different levels of people in our jobs. You with children and teachers and parents, me with different healthcare professionals, patients, and families. You also with athletes,
Mm-hmm.
me with athletes as well.
Yep.
Um, and then also the training and research that goes behind the jobs that we do, because I know this man over here reads a whole lot about a whole lot of stuff, and
100.
especially in particularly regards to his jobs.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then me, of course, I'm required for my jobs to continue to do education and research as well to stay up to date with technology and treatment methods.
Yeah.
So what do you have a favorite, I guess, educational period that you've experienced in your life?
Yeah. And first of all, I love that definition of education. I love how it ends with habits as well, because I do believe that that is our key to manifesting that higher self that we're all looking for, is
Mm.
to be able to build that habit towards doing what it is that you want to do. But the period of my life that really sparked me to have an educational thirst to try to learn more was when I was in college, because I was taking philosophy classes. My minor was in philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to kind of break up my day of all this more intensive work to just go learn about these philosophers
Mm.
and hear a professor who's almost mastered this field talk about it and combat the ideas that I had
Yeah.
in this subject. So I just fell in love with, sending my professor emails and trying to ask if I could meet at certain times to ask questions, because what they were teaching me was opening up my mind so much. But I also noticed that it had a time period on it, and the origins of a lot of what they were talking about would go back to Greek philosophers. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading all these different things talking about these ancient civilizations and these psychologists and philosophers that come before Greece, these library of Alexandria, and all these great people that are in these different areas. And I have questions towards
Yeah.
for my for my professor. I'm like, hold on, we're learning about Plato, but who taught the person who taught Plato, and
Yeah.
where are we gonna try to really follow this trend of monotheism? Where does it begin? Which people? And so that is the time in my life, I think, that really turned me on to just trying to learn as much as I can.
Mm.
And then once I was done and, finished my minor in philosophy, the world just kind of opened up to me, because, like you're saying, there's a lot of different ways that we learn. Some of it is passive. I believe that my thirst for philosophy started when I started listening to hip hop at 4 years old
Mm.
because those are some of the most dope philosophers I've heard of.
Yeah.
Tupac
Uh-huh.
and, you know, J. Cole, Kendrick. These people are top class philosophers, and they're using rhythm to put their message into your field.
To educate.
To educate.
Yeah. Right.
And that's another big part of how I consume education. Music, documentaries, and like you're saying, books, literature. I know that certain things work with me better and some things I remember more, but I try to use all mediums.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to do. Most people do have a certain form of learning that's best for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the assessments that we have to do in the hospital, because we educate people so much, is how they prefer to learn. So whether just through explanation, through hands-on, you know, instruction, them having to demonstrate things, or through just having them view a video. We have a lot of different methods of education for our patients, and even for us as professionals, we go through hands-on classes, online classes. We have to take written tests for continuing education credits. So um, for so long, my education was so focused on nursing. So in college, it was demanding that I had to study so much in healthcare. And then even afterwards and starting my job, there was so much to learn in becoming a young nurse. And I would say just recently, within the past couple of years, I've really found the opportunity to um, start learning things that I'm more specifically interested in outside of my job.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's been really valuable to me in rekindling that passion for learning that I know I had when I was growing up, you know, and I still had it always, but it was just so focused for a long time that I didn't take the time to educate myself in some other areas such as finances and you know, psychology and other things that aren't so focused on bodily function and critical care. Um, we went to school together in
Mm-hmm.
middle school and high school, so a large portion of at least our formal education has been very similar. And Arizona doesn't necessarily get a good rap for its public education, but I think, in my opinion, that we had a relatively good educational experience
Yeah.
in Arizona in the public school system.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think that? Ooh, that's loud. Do you think that sometimes the experience of a child going through an educational system can really rely on them?
I think sometimes it can rely on them. For the most part, though, I think that it's variables outside of their control.
Yeah.
Up to a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you know, we all kind of understand how funding works in the American school system, how depending on the property taxes in the area, the public schools that are in that area are going to get funding that matches that.
Mm-hmm.
So for a lot of people in America who are in poor areas, they don't receive the same education as suburban public schools.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is working against you as a kindergartner and your elementary school has a 60% dropout rate by the time these kids get to high school,
Mm-hmm.
those are some variables that are outside of your control.
Yeah.
That are going to make it kind of difficult. And since we do put such a emphasis on education to be our tool for mobility, class mobility, self-actualization,
Mm-hmm.
confidence and self-esteem and identity, all these things that we know it to be great for,
Yep.
it gets kind of interesting when you start talking about these variables that some people can't control towards
Mm-hmm.
their education.
Yeah. And do you think that some of those differences may be intentional?
Yes, I definitely think that they stem back throughout history and show that there are systems set up
Mm-hmm.
to have certain people, you know, not maximize their potential.
Yeah.
The inherent philosophy of America is beautiful. Freedom of speech every person has this value within them that we're all going to recognize, but it hasn't always played out that way when we look at the functions and system of the society. But I am trying to develop an internal locus of control as much as possible. So I think that's why it's great we do this, because what tools can we give somebody who's been at a disadvantage to
Hmm.
catch up to speed and excel, develop that self esteem, confidence,
Yeah.
and feeling like they can? One of my favorite philosophers, KRS1, who is a hip hop historian, a philosopher, an American philosopher, he has a quote that says, "You don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain. And the more words your brain has, the more you can see."
Hmm.
And that is one of the key things that I operate from. The more that you know how to say, the more that you know how to articulate, the
Yeah.
more you will see happening.
Yeah, 100%. Because one problem that people have is that they're not able to articulate the things that they feel and they experience.
Mm-hmm.
And our experiences are very important. That's a part of the learning process.
Yeah.
And being able to relate to other people's experiences, learn from other people's mistakes, and not make the same mistakes over and over again is very important in personal growth. So, those are things that we again have had some experiences together in developing that level of understanding of the world, made some mistakes together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Had some successes together. And it is important to be able to reflect upon your experiences, not only with yourself, but it's also beneficial to be able to reflect with someone else and
Yeah.
hear another perspective on some similar experiences, and be able to have someone that you not only agree with but can also disagree with, but still continue to have a constructive conversation about things, because that's also something that a lot of people lack, having the opportunity to do. And that's a crucial, uh, I guess, building block of the learning process as well, in my opinion.
100%, man. Iron sharpens iron. And I think that in academia, they make this clear because they have the peer review process. But sometimes it's just normal people outside of academia. If we want to develop our knowledge, we also need a peer review process. But
Mhm.
sometimes we just beef with our peers. So we never really get to that point where we can present our ideas without the fear of actually getting into a heated argument.
Yeah,
And as
yeah,
two young men out here in America, I think that we're doing a great job of being able to remain clinical in
yeah.
our perspectives.
Yeah. There's high competition in everything, and some people don't realize that you do need some people on your team. The lone wolf thing doesn't really work too well, and it could be lonely at the top, but it doesn't have to be.
Mm-mm.
And the journey to the top's a lot easier if you don't do it by yourself. So that's something that I think is very important
Well, let me
for.
ask you though, because I'm wondering the same question. What time period in your life do you feel like really put you on to wanting to learn this deeper knowledge? And the type of science that you've had to study for, I'm sure, long hours is not easy. It's not easy material. It's not easy material to grasp.
Hmm. I guess after I became a nurse, because I started, um, being able to see into other people's lives and not only see diseases that they're dealing with, but being able to hear the stories behind either what caused their disease or at least what their lifestyle was like up until they got their diagnosis, and also how they're dealing with it now and their plans moving forward. I've seen people across all different stages of life. I've assisted in delivering a baby. I've laid 90-year-olds to rest. I've laid 20-something-year-olds to rest, and a lot of that was very difficult for me at first, but it taught me very valuable lessons about life, and also sparked my interest in just understanding life as a whole and understanding people. and being able to relate to people and gain the trust of people,
Mm.
especially in what I do. My job's a lot easier if people trust me. So
Wow.
I like to know how people think and why they think the way they do, based off their experiences, and try to be as relatable as I can with them and be as honest as I can with them, and help them in their healing process more than just the physical realm, but also spiritually and emotionally, because those are things that definitely get damaged when people go through what they go through in the ICU, whether it's a family member or the person themselves. The healing process is not easy, so I take a lot of pride in being able to assist people in doing that. And I know that the more that I can understand people and understand the world that I'm living in and also that they're living in, and our different realities and how they come together, and the purpose behind us having those moments together, then
Mm.
um, I can really make the most of the experience that we're sharing, and hopefully make it easier for them to bounce back and get as normal of a life as they can again after they've gone through that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Totally understand that. That is kind of the story of the healer archetype
Mm-hmm.
and the teacher archetype.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And those are two archetypes that really excite me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Everybody, like John Legend says, want to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something in me that just really hurts whenever I see somebody who, whether it's through their ego or through something genuine, just wants to feel some type of attention or love, and they've developed a maladaptive behavior to receive that love.
Yeah.
That always hurts me because it's like, you know, what you truly want is very tender and vulnerable, but the behaviors that you're presenting are off putting and harsh
Yeah.
because you're searching for something that's actually soft.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I love the process that I get to see humans go through to come to a more unified and holistic way to be with themselves and grow. But I also like looking at our downfalls because there's so much information in them,
Oh
in our
yeah.
failures. I'm one of those guys that sits and watches other people do what I'm about to do, see how they mess up, and write
Right.
it in my notes.
Yep.
That's always been me, and I think that that's also a big part of why I've been able to be successful,
Mm-hmm.
is because I milk those failures. So let
Yeah.
me ask you this: a lot of people who try to guide, mentor, or give information to help others grow reach a level of burnout. You know, I've worked with a lot of teachers, and one thing that's consistent amongst them all is that burnout is almost inevitable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This seems like a medium to me to try to combat burnout by being more individualistic with your approach and what you're going to send out. But for you, have you felt any type of burnout, even, you know, in your short career so far, and how have
Yeah.
you dealt with that?
Yeah. I blame a lot of the burnout to the pandemic, of course. You know, I've been a nurse for 4 years. 3 of those years have been after the pandemic started. So that's 75% of my career, which is also 75% of my career I've spent in the intensive care unit. So a couple of those years were really difficult. And there was just burnout on many different levels. So I think through that experience, of course, I'm seeing things that nobody else is seeing, and so many people couldn't even begin to understand the gravity of the situation, and there was just no way of being able to portray how awful it was and what was going on.